Good morning. Namaste. This is Dr. Uma Kiduvital, Faculty of Agricultural and Veterinary Sciences, Jayoti Vidyapeeth Women's University, Jaipur. As you know, I'll be taking the course on metabolism and bioenergetics this semester. And in the previous session, we have looked into glycogenesis, the synthesis of glycogen in the presence of excess glucose in the cells. Now, in this session, we will be looking at when the cell doesn't have enough glucose and then it needs to synthesize glucose. So the process of gluconeogenesis, that is new glucose being synthesized. So gluconeogenesis. So why gluconeogenesis? So that is the first part that we will be looking into. So glucose is a key metabolite in human metabolism, and it might not always be available at sufficient levels in the diet. And if that is so, then our body needs a pathway to convert other foodstuffs into glucose, and that is known as the gluconeogenesis. So why? Because brain requires like around 50 to 75% of its calories in the form of glucose, and red blood cells exclusively subsist on glucose. So these brain and red blood cells require glucose, and then glucose, like we had studied the pentose phosphate pathway, the HMP shunt, in which glucose gets converted into other sugars needed for the biosynthesis of nucleotides, like ribose 5-phosphate was formed over there, then erythrose 4-phosphate was formed over there, then it is also required for synthesis of glycoproteins, glycolipids, like muraminic acid and all. They are all formed from glucose only, and N-acetyl glucosamine. They are all important compounds in the cell that requires glucose for its synthesis. And also, if we are glucose is needed to replenish the NADPH. So we had looked into that also, like glycolysis and Krebs cycle does not replenish NADPH. It's the pentose phosphate pathway that produces the NADPH, which supplies the reducing power for the biosynthesis and detoxification. And these considerations makes the need for gluconeogenesis. And that is because I had told in the previous session also that if the body goes into a state of hypoglycemia, it will lead to the body getting into a comatose state. Now, as I was saying, that brain requires glucose, but what about people who are going into keto diets? Nowadays, keto diets have become like the rage, and so people are going on extremely low carb diets or zero carb diets. Then what happens? Because if there are no carbohydrates to be hydrolyzed to get the glucose, then what happens? So in that circumstance, the body will start producing keto bodies from the lipids that have been consumed, because lipids or proteins, the metabolism, like mostly for lipid metabolism, ketone bodies are formed. So acetoacetate and such soluble keto bodies that can be formed by fatty acid metabolism, they will be formed, and then they will be transported to the cells, where liver cells, where gluconeogenesis can occur. So we will be looking into the process of gluconeogenesis. Now, gluconeogenesis is actually something that is the opposite of glycolysis, even though there are like different enzymes that are involved. So I will show you the steps of glycolysis and gluconeogenesis. So what happens is in glycolysis, glucose gets converted to glucose 6-phosphate, then to fructose 6-phosphate, then to fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Then aldolase converts it to dihydroxyacetone phosphate and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Then triose phosphate isomerase converts the dihydroxyacetone phosphate to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So finally, we end up with 2 molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Then that will get converted to bisphosphoglycerate, and then the phosphoglycerate kinase will convert it to 3-phosphoglycerate, and then mutase will convert it to 2-phosphoglycerate, and then enolase will convert it to phosphoenol pyruvate. And finally, the pyruvate kinase will convert the phosphoenol pyruvate to pyruvate. So this will also involve the production of ATP. Now, in this step, this uses one ATP, and this step uses another ATP. And that is converted into ADP. Over here, one NADH is produced, and over here, one ATP is produced, and over here also, the phosphoenol pyruvate step to pyruvate step also, one ATP is produced. So we will have a net yield of 8 ATP in glycolysis. Now, if we are coming to gluconeogenesis, then pyruvate is like single carbon is added to pyruvate in order to form oxaloacetate. Now, if you remember the glyoxylate pathway, in that oxaloacetate was produced because oxaloacetate is required for gluconeogenesis. So only the glyoxylate pathway actually differs only in the production of oxaloacetate as such. So here we have the pyruvate, and the pyruvate will get converted into oxaloacetate. There are other mechanisms also by which oxaloacetate is produced. And once the oxaloacetate is produced, then remember these enzymes where there is difference from glycolysis, they are extremely important steps. So this is not done by pyruvate kinase, but pyruvate carboxylase. And once oxaloacetate is formed, then the phosphoenol pyruvate carboxy kinase converts oxaloacetate to phosphoenol pyruvate. So then this step is reversible. So phosphoenol pyruvate to phosphoglycerate is done by enolase, and this is again done by phosphoglyceromutase, and then same phosphoglycerate kinase, and then glyceraldehyde phosphate dehydrogenase. These 4 steps are the same. And then triose phosphate isomerase will convert it to dihydroxyacetone phosphate. Then aldolase will convert combine these two to form fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. So till here, again, the enzymes are the same. Now, change in enzyme. Phosphofructokinase converts fructose 6-phosphate to fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, and fructose 1,6-bisphosphatase, a phosphatase enzyme, removes the phosphate and makes it fructose 6-phosphate. Now, this is again the same enzyme, the phosphohexose isomerase. This is the same enzyme. And once this is there, then again, instead of hexokinase, glucose 6-phosphate to glucose formation will be by glucose 6-phosphatase. So here the kinases act in, like I had already in the previous session told you, that kinases add phosphate, phosphatases remove phosphate. So hexokinase adds phosphate, glucose 6-phosphatase removes the phosphate. Here phosphofructokinase adds phosphate, fructose 1,6-bisphosphatase removes the kinase. And here again, carboxylase adds the carbon, and then carboxykinase adds the phosphate. So that is the major steps of gluconeogenesis. And as you can see, they are the same steps except for the pyruvate to oxaloacetate step. They are the same steps as the glycolysis steps. So that would be the overview of this one. Now, if we were to look into other sources, then glycerol can be converted into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Acetone can be converted into pyruvate. Lactate can be converted into pyruvate. That we will be looking in the anaerobic respiration step. That is the next session. Then there are various amino acids that can give fumarate and then oxaloacetate as well. And this fumarate can get converted to oxaloacetate in the Krebs cycle. And these can also be used to produce the phosphoenol pyruvate and then begin with gluconeogenesis. So these are the various sources of oxaloacetate and phosphoenol pyruvate, or else it could be any step actually, any product in between that can be formed by cellular reactions can act as a starting point of gluconeogenesis. So if we were to look into the other substrate supply, then protein is a substrate supply for gluconeogenesis. So protein will be first broken down into its constituent amino acids, and then those amino acids can be converted to pyruvate or any of the Krebs cycle intermediates, and they are therefore called glucogenic amino acids. So leucine, lysine, and aromatic amino acids. So that will be tryptophan and tyrosine. They are degraded to acetyl-CoA or acetoacetate, as I was saying, the ketone bodies. And so these amino acids are ketogenic. And gluconeogenesis only proceeds in the liver and the kidneys. And since liver is like 5 times larger than the 2 kidneys combined, like liver is the largest organ. So then it synthesizes the most of the glucose, and together with glycogen degradation, gluconeogenesis ensures that there's a stable blood glucose levels between the meals. And you know what, we have looked into the reactions in the gluconeogenesis pathway. So if we were to look into the interaction of gluconeogenesis with other pathway, then we have already looked into it, that pyruvate carboxylase provides oxaloacetate, is involved in carboxylation of pyruvate to form oxaloacetate directly. So that's actually a Krebs cycle intermediate. And then there are 2 interorgan cycles actually that happens for the gluconeogenesis. That is the Cori cycle and the glucose alanine cycle. And that we'll be discussing later in the amino acid metabolism, this one. And there is also the mitochondrial substrate transport in gluconeogenesis. That is because pyruvate carboxylase resides inside the mitochondria. But as you know, glycolysis happens in the cell. So that is the main source for the pyruvate production. So since the mitochondrial concentration of oxaloacetate is low and malate dehydrogenase equilibrium actually favors malate. So substrate export occurs at the level of malate, then it is exchanged for phosphate by a dicarboxylate carrier, and then the NADH that is produced in this reaction can be used for the reversal of the glyceraldehyde 3 dehydrogenase reaction, and that is how the reaction will be proceeding. So then what all inhibits gluconeogenesis? So one of the things that inhibits gluconeogenesis is the ethanol degradation. So like utilization of ethanol by alcohol dehydrogenase, then this alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme catalyzes the conversion of ethanol to acetate, and then that is converted to acetyl-CoA by acetate thiokinase. So this actually raises the amount of NADH in the cell, so that reduces the pyruvate and oxaloacetate levels, and so therefore ethanol actually is a gluconeogenesis inhibitor. So other than that, there are like various other mechanisms that are there to regulate the gluconeogenesis pathways. So mostly at the enzyme levels, and then the glucose phosphorylation cycling happens in the endoplasmic reticulum and in the cytosol separately, like the hexokinase or the glucokinase operates in the cytosol, whereas the glucose-6 phosphatase is actually the gluconeogenesis pathway. Over here, I had already shown you that the conversion of glucose-6 phosphate to glucose actually happens in the endoplasmic reticulum, because the enzyme required for that, the glucose-6 phosphatase, is located in the endoplasmic reticulum. So ER is one of the major components for gluconeogenesis, and that makes sense because once the glucose is produced, glucose needs to be secreted out into the blood so that it can be utilized by the red blood cells and transported to the brain, where also no gluconeogenesis or glycogenolysis occurs. So these are all required. And then there is also the fructose-6 phosphate phosphorylation cycling. So fructose 1,6 bisphosphatase is there, and the phosphofructokinase are the two enzymes that are involved in the interconversion of fructose 6-phosphate and the fructose 1,6 bisphosphate in the glycolysis or the gluconeogenesis cycle. So over here, there are enzymatic regulations of those as well. And then the normal hormone regulation, like if epinephrine and glucagon are present, then gluconeogenesis will occur. If insulin is present, gluconeogenesis will be inhibited. So it's the same three enzymes that are involved in the regulation of the hormonal regulation of gluconeogenesis. So that will be it for about gluconeogenesis. Thank you. Have a good day.